Welcome everyone to our new episode of PharmaShots CXO Talks. I'm your host Aditya Singh. If you talk about me, as you already know because you're here on this channel. I'm a father of two boys, a husband of a superwoman, and by education, I'm a pharmacist. Uh, I've been working in this biopharma sector for almost 18 years now. And today we are going to present our new guest here. She is Liz Benditt. Uh, she is a six-time cancer survivor, and this podcast is going to be a bit different because today we are going to talk more about the patient perception and the need in the cancer market. So, what patients are feeling, how they are going to deal with the situations, and what are the background stories. We will listen a lot of stories from Liz itself, and then we are going to talk about the Balm Box. Liz had this company. She is a founder and CEO of Balm Box, and we are going to talk about Balm Box, how Balm Box is taking the market or it's supporting the patient in a quite different way. Welcome, Liz. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
So, Liz, let's get us started. So, as I already told our viewers here that this is going to be different, can you please give a brief introduction about yourself, and then we'll move on to the your cancer surviving story, and then we'll talk about the story behind the bomb box.
Sure. So, a little bit about myself. I grew up in Southern California. I attended Boston University undergrad, got my degree in broadcast and film communications, and my master in business at University of Southern California with a focus on marketing. I had about 25 years experience before becoming an entrepreneur in various, rising executive level roles, both an ad agency and also in-house at various B2C and B2B companies, which was a phenomenal, I think, background before becoming an entrepreneur. I am also married. I've got two kiddos, although everyone is bigger than me. I'm the shrimp in the family. My husband is very big and tall, and both my children are over 6 feet tall. My daughter is a sophomore at University of Minnesota studying kinesiology, and my son is a senior in high school and getting ready to go to college next year. So lots of change in the Bendit house.
So, can you please tell more about how the cancer thing started? And obviously, for all of us, it's for first time when you hear that it's a shock. And then
Yeah,
because you are a six-time cancer survivor, so let's start with how it started, and then
yeah,
we'll
yeah. So
move
the
on to
very,
yeah.
very first cancer, um, but my mom likes to take credit for this one, so thank you, Irene. I was, um, my very first cancer was a melanoma on my leg. It was, it was just a mole. And it was something that I didn't notice, I didn't care about. As for anyone that can see, we've had a lot of conversations, DJ and I, about the light in here, but I am very fair skinned and freckled. And so, big freckles, small freckles, they all kind of blend together. And when my son was a baby, he was about 1 year old, my daughter was 3, we were at the pool with my family. And I say that because, of course, I was in skimpy clothing, and my mom just couldn't let go of looking at this mole on my leg and really felt like something was wrong, and she nagged me about it uncontrollably until finally, to make her shut up already, I went to her stupid dermatologist where
Mhm.
they did a biopsy and immediately told, and within a couple of days told me, hey, look, this is melanoma, this is really serious, whatever is on your schedule, you need to cancel it, and we're going to schedule a surgery. And I got that notification on a Tuesday. My surgery was on a Friday. Like, it was bonkers fast. And it was one of those things where they did the pathology over the weekend, and I was going to find out Monday whether the cancer had spread and I had less than a year to live, or if the cancer was a nothing, hadn't spread, and I just need to wear more sunscreen. And That was a tough weekend. That was really tough. And I was really grateful that my kids were so little that they didn't, I'm sure they picked up on the fact that my husband and I were stressed, and my mom, was there a ton to help us out. And, but, kids being little at the time when they were such littles, like it was, bath time and snacks and activities were really good. They kind of kept us busy so we couldn't spend the weekend obsessing. Monday I got the call, cancer hadn't spread. The answer was just wear more sunscreen. And I was on my way, which was just so bizarre, right? Like it's just so crazy. Like either you're dead
Yeah, yeah.
or it's no big deal. Like it just
Hmm.
was, those were the choices. Um, so then less than a year later, because my mother herself had had breast cancer, was supposed to have started doing mammograms when I was 35, but I was 35, I was pregnant. So I couldn't. And so I was 36 and it was time to go in there and get my first mammogram. And when I did, they saw something they didn't like and had to do a biopsy. When I was there doing the biopsy, the breast surgeon started, she was feeling my breast and then starting to move her fingers up to my neck. And she was just really not liking the something in my neck. And I was like, this is so weird. I thought the issue was in my boob. And she's like, well, we're going to do both. So at that time, they did a biopsy of whatever was in my breast, which turned out to be, a nothing burger. It was random weird cells. But what was in my neck turned out to be thyroid cancer. So cancer number two, less than a year after the first one, I had absolutely no other indicators. It was literally just the surgeon that identified a lump in my neck. When I had that, so I had to have, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've been diagnosed with cancer again. It's, Wednesday. Are we having, when is the surgery? Is it next week? They're like, well, this is a really slow growing cancer and we want you to do some labs. So, and we can schedule it. And then how's 2 months from now? And it just completely like shocked me that, I was allowed to walk around with cancer knowingly for 2 months. Like that just seemed insane to me. It's after the whole melanoma crazy experience. But in the end, in retrospect, it was a gift because I had time to plan, right? You had time to plan for childcare, I had time to plan to kind of, get things set aside at work. So I could then take a week off and just kind of do things a little bit more comfortably. And I was really grateful that I could because I ended up with all sorts of bonkers side effects as a result of that surgery. I became what's known as hypocalcemic. So, given that everyone on this podcast or listening is probably has some medical expertise, you actually know what that is. But when they removed my thyroid, the parathyroid glands they just became dysfunctional or non-functional. And they sent me home. And within a couple of hours, I went into hypocalcemic shock, where my hands got numb and my face was numb. And so we called back and we're like, hey, this is a little weird. And they're like, get back here now. And so it's so rare, hypocalcemia, that it's not like they had IV calcium ready to go. So there was a nurse in the ER standing with like a syringe, and she was like a human drip. She was the one pumping calcium into my veins little by little. It was completely crazy. Like now, it's just so rare to have hypocalcemia. And so that landed me
Yeah.
in the hospital for an extra 2 weeks while they tried to figure out, a drug alternative to get me off of IV calcium. I do
Mm.
not recommend that. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. There was one night where they just couldn't figure out when and why my calcium was dropping, and it would drop so precipitously that they did blood tests on the hour every hour to try to figure out what was going on. And that night sucked. That was not good. I don't just the poor. I still remember the nurse that came in. He's like, "I'm so sorry to wake you up. Here we go." Just taking my blood. It's terrible. But eventually they figured out this drug concoction that got me off of the IV drip, which was the whole point, so I could go home. It took me a really long time to get healthy after that. I really was struggling with all sorts of side effects, because it's not a well-studied side effect. It's, you're just kind of working with your endocrinologist to try to figure it out. And I kept complaining to my endocrinologist, I'm so tired all the time. Like I wasn't this tired when my kids weren't sleeping through the night. Like something is wrong. This fatigue is just not natural. And he turned to me and said, you're a working mom. Working moms are always tired. And I just was so frustrated that he wasn't listening to me. And so, I whined about this to some girlfriends, and one of my friends said, I see this like crazy lady. She runs a med spa. I've had problems with my migraines for years, and she was one of the first people that was doing Botox in the head as a treatment for migraines. And she said, she's just counterculture. Like, it can't hurt. Go talk to her. And so
Mhm.
I went to go chat with this lady, and she no didn't give me Botox in the head, but what she did do is she looked at my labs very differently than others, and she said, you look like someone that's maybe got that's got an allergy to gluten, that you're maybe celiac. Let's quit gluten and see what happens. And they also did a bunch of vitamin B shots and other stuff that ended up not being terribly useful. But the quitting gluten was a game changer. And so whether I'm genuinely celiac, or whether this is just a way to manage hypocalcemia, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter, because within about 3 weeks of quitting gluten, I felt like I woke up. And within a year, I was back to running. I started with, just running 2 miles, and then 3, and then ultimately within 2 years, I ran a half marathon. So this is what I'm telling you. I could not have done that without the help of this other med spa lady. And I only point that out because I think that there's a lot of noise out there for patients, right? When it comes to, what do I do, right? Will this holistic candle from Goop be useful to me? And should I do that instead of my traditional treatments? And what I've always said to people is traditional treatments are really important. You can't quit those. But there's a lot of holistic stuff out there that's helpful. And why can't you do both? It's not an either or, it's an absolute both. And it's really important to kill the cancer scientifically, but at the same time, that can lead to some pretty miserable day-to-day life. So what else can we do to make life better? And I think that this whole experience led me to realize that doctors are not one size fits all, that there's a fair amount of art as there is to science, that different doctors treat things differently. After that comment from that endocrinologist, in my head, I fired him. I wasn't that brave. I didn't say you're fired outside my mouth, but I did fire him, found a new one, who was amazing and awesome, and said, look, there's no medical journal out here that's studying the combination of a gluten-free diet and hypocalcemia, but if it's working for you, let's do it, right? And so really understanding that our bodies are different, and also little things like people would look at my blood count and whatever. I don't remember the numbers because, again, I'm not a medical expert, but like there was a measurement of like what is a quote normal amount of calcium, and normal was like 7.5 to 9.5, and I was going into shock in the eights. And so whatever the case is, my body clearly just needs more, like, or it just runs on high. And so that's another thing where the other endocrinologist is like, you're in normal range. When I would say, well, my lips are numb, my fingers are numb, something is wrong. Whereas the new endocrinologists say, okay, well, we're going to list, even though that's what the numbers say, I'm also looking at you, listening to you. You're not crazy. Let's adjust your Synthroid. Let's adjust your meds, right? And let's kind of see what we can do to get you feeling good, as well as like on the labs in the numbers looking good. And so that whole experience was just, again, that wasn't just overnight. That was like 2 years of work and advocating for myself. Such that when I got my next diagnosis in 2015, which was just a little nudge on my nose. At that point, me and my dermatologist were besties. I got naked with her twice a year, where she looked at every inch of my body. And I had this little nudge in my nose that just looked a little bit weird. And so she looked at it and she said, no, that's not normal. It turned out to be basal cell. And so she sent me to, she said, because it's on your face, we'll have a plastic surgeon remove it. And so she sent me to the plastic surgeon in her office, and I went to him and he said, it's in a really weird spot. And because of the freckle pattern on your face, we're going to have to create a cut, and it's going to go from the inside of your nose all the way around your laugh line of your face, all the way to your mouth. And you'll have this giant C-shaped scar in your face for the rest of your life. And it will, it'll be really angry for a while and eventually go away, or not go away, but it will get less angry. And I was like, wow, I really don't want a giant C-shaped scar on my face forever. Is there any other option? He's like, no, when do you want to schedule your surgery? And I was like, well, let me think about it. And so because it was basal, and because at this point now I was more educated that like every surgery, every cancer doesn't have to be removed that instant. I took my time and I talked to other plastic surgeons, and I found a plastic surgeon who was, board certified and lovely and wonderful, who had a different kind of surgery that would not leave me with a giant C-shaped scar on my face. And it was really, really invasive and painful. But you do that to protect the integrity of your face. And so what he did was he
I see.
did, I was awake for this, which again, don't recommend. Where they did a cut and they removed the cancer on my nose. And then, like, when you have like a turkey and you're like, or a chicken, and you're separating the skin from the meat, and you're to put in the butter and the herbs. Well, I feel like that's what they were doing to me. Like, they were lifting the skin and like loosening it up. And the idea was to lift the skin and loosen it up such that they could get just enough stretch out of it that they could close that gap and not have to
Yeah.
create a longer scar. And then he
Mhm.
did that. And so I had to walk around with loose skin and this giant bandage on my nose for, I think it was 10 days. Then I could go back. And at that point, the skin was loosened up and they could close it up. So way, way more expensive, way more complex, way more painful than I'm sure what the first doctor would have been, but totally worth it. Right. And that was my choice. It was because I advocated for myself and I started to say, well, let's just see what else is out there. So these are things that you learn when you go through this process, such that then a year and a half later, I get my regular mammograms, and that mammogram came back with a question on my left breast. Turns out that it was invasive ductal carcinoma. So luckily found very, very early. I could get away with a lumpectomy and radiation. And at that time, I was a runner at that point. I'd been doing a lot of, regularly running 10 miles every weekend, long runs in the weekdays, and very, very healthy, had great stamina. And so everyone just thought I would sail through my treatments, go into the radiation oncology um, waiting room, and it's all old ladies with, canes and walkers and me. And so I was really arrogant, thinking, well, this is going to be no big deal. Like, I'm young and healthy. I'm going to make all my appointments for 7:30 in the morning so I can get straight to the office. It's just the only difference is my husband has to drive the kids to school, like no biggie. And I was just not prepared for how much radiation would kick my butt. Like, it absolutely, beyond just again, I'm very, very fair skinned. My skin turned red, then turned purple, then chunks fell off. They had to stop multiple times because my skin couldn't take it. I also had searing fatigue. I was working at a small business at the time, and they were amazing and so supportive. And I just went from working 10-hour days to 8-hour days to 6-hour days to maybe 3 to 4 hours in the office, and that's all I could handle. So I was there, and I think that was good. I mean, I think for me, functionally having something to do and being busy was good versus being home and sulking. But I would go home and eventually have to, take some Vicodin and then be, a drug-addled nothing burger on the couch. And so I made it through, and and that felt like I survived something. Like, I felt like I did something, and my girlfriends at the time were like, this was so vicious. We need to celebrate. And so they created a party for me, and it was called the Finish Line Party, which was great. And because, we ran, lots of 10Ks and races together. So it was like a race themed event, and friends came in from out of town and we celebrated. And it was like, it felt like I put an end to that chapter. It was so lovely. And I cannot recommend enough, right? Have a Finish Line Party, right? You got to do something to celebrate the end of this stuff because it's rough. The other thing I will say about the radiation is, again, what they're allowed, at least what my radiation oncologist was allowed to give me, was just something, Aquaphor, just like really, really basic lotion. And I was in so much pain. I'm an information junkie. I like knowing things. And so I was like down the rabbit hole on the interwebs, reading like medical papers that I had no business reading, that but what I found were that a lot of medical journal, or a lot of papers were talking about the use of calendula oil in helping burn victims, and that the calendula oil infused lotion has this ability to kind of maybe take the sting out of burns. And so then I, of course, went to find the highest concentrate calendula oil lotion on the market. It was incredibly expensive. It was like $50 for this little 2-ounce bottle. And I got it, and it made a huge difference. And like, the nurses and the doctors were looking at me saying, what are you using? This is amazing. And so I kept showing them, like, you guys have to give this to your patients, and they wish they could, but it has to go through all the rigmarole. In the US, we have crazy hospital procedures. But regardless, it was like totally helpful. And I loved being able to, as I started to come off of radiation, it's way better to be able to put on lotion and then have my mind and brain intact. Because once, for me at least, once I started an opioid, like I couldn't think straight and I couldn't be alone with my kids and I couldn't, it was just so, and I couldn't drive. Like, there's just, it's so limiting. And I wanted my brain back and I wanted my life back. And so to be able to use this, lotion, and ice got me through. It wasn't obviously, it's not Vicodin, but man, it was such a better tool for me. And so again, thinking about like, I'm not suggesting don't do the radiation. That's important. Do the radiation. But what else can we do to help ourselves that don't involve, prescriptions? And
Yes.
that was another kind of, thought in the brain. So then you fast forward to um the pandemic, and that was when like the idea of
So
the Balm Box came to
the
me.
radiation, which year was the radiation when you went
Radiation
through
was
all this?
2017,
17.
the
And
end of
then
2017.
now we are talking about the 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
2020 was so I had the idea. So all along this time, I mean, I can tell you about my other two cancers, which happened after I launched the Bomb Box, if we want to do
Hmm.
that and then circle back, which we can. So my fifth cancer was 5 years after my first breast cancer, got regular, um, you know, mammograms, and actually they would do mammograms and MRIs. So every 6 months, I would have one or the other, an MRI with contrast dye, and then a mammogram. So I was seen every 6 months. The MRI with contrast dye picked up something in my right breast. It turned out that it was a completely separate, all new cancer, that was not a recurrence. It was just a totally different second cancer, which is so rare. They don't have a number for it. No one could give it to me. So it's rare.
Hmm.
So welcome to my life. I'm unique. And so that one I really fought hard to keep my breast, but I got second and third opinions, and pretty much everyone said, yeah, the boob's a goner, sorry. So I sucked it up and had a mastectomy in March of 23. I was diagnosed in November, December of 22. Yeah, it was December of 22. And then I had the mastectomy in March of 23. And then I had a deep flap reconstruction July of 23. So that was the only good thing. The deep flap reconstruction, so awesome. That's where they use
Hmm.
your lower belly and turn that into a
Yeah.
boob. So yeah, I have
Yeah.
a nice flat stomach. Thank you for thank you also, health insurance, for paying for my tummy tuck, because that was a nice little benefit. And so and that was hard. It's a very difficult recovery. Um, while I'm functional and can do things again, it's weird. It's weird to have an appendage that you can't feel. I had a lot of I definitely went through physical therapy to help me kind of figure out how to use my body again. It was really confusing to know when to use my stomach muscles, when not to. Like, all these things are just really tricky when your body is healing from
Yeah.
complex surgeries. And so I eventually got healthy again, decided I wanted to own my body again. I wanted to run another half marathon. And so I started training for that half marathon. And within a couple months of training for that half marathon, I had a melanoma, another stinking melanoma, this time on my lower calf. Which really was a bummer, which meant couldn't run for 2 months while that healed. So that was really frustrating. So I had to put that off. And so I picked a different half marathon, and I eventually ran that half marathon in 25. Um, and I finished it, and it felt like a really big accomplishment. It was about a year ago. It was April of 2025. And that was a
Fantastic.
really
Yeah.
big deal to kind of feel like I could own it. So that was 6. I would like to be done, but who knows? We're prepared.
Wow, that's an incredible story, and that's very motivating as well that you were able to fight through all of those and all of the situations, and then obviously you are like a warrior now, I would say. And even though in after that situations you were able to run the half marathons as well. So this is a kind of very incredible story. While listening to you, this question, obviously, everyone, I'm not sure everyone has that same question, but that one question comes up is that how was the emotional well-being? And I totally understand that even though the small thing lead us to demotivation, but then how you keep up yourself with the emotional stress and
Yeah.
like level of demotivation are there, and then a lot of other kind of stress are also there because you overthink you when you are not working, you are resting, then you tends to overthink. So tell us about that, how you keep you
I think I
motivated,
wish that there's
calm
a
in that
silver,
situation.
yeah, I
Yeah.
understand the question. I wish there was a silver bullet, right? I think it's a
Hmm.
combination of a lot of things. So one is if I start with my upbringing, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. They met in the false roof of a barn during in Poland after the Nazis invaded Poland, and they lived in that barn for 4 years before eventually coming out, finding their entire families annihilated, and eventually getting married, having my mother, and making their way to the United States. That's a different story, but I grew up constantly hearing about, oi, 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 how we suffered, and so nothing can compare, right? So
Yeah.
I did grow up a little bit, and it's a little screwed up, but like whatever I was going through in my life, whether it was I got rejected from my number one school, or I didn't get an A in a test, or a boy broke up with me, or whatever, it just could never compare to the suffering of my grandparents. And so I there's a little bit of my brain, right, that I'm wired to think at least it's not the Holocaust, right? At least I'm not in a barn and with my
Hmm.
teeth falling out eating, rotten potatoes. And um, so there's that, I think, is a huge part of it. And then the second part is um, I think through my cancers, I have learned that I have some it I one of the things that really, really stinks about being a cancer patient is you feel this lack of control. And I have this really fun, I don't know if you can see this. Um, my kids gave this to me. This is a little coaster, and it says, as long as everything is exactly the way I want, I'm totally flexible. um,
Yeah.
and I am a little bit of a control freak. And so that for me, that was really, really hard. And so one of the things that I learned through this whole program and process was take control of what you can, right? I can't control the cancer, but I can control um, what I'm having for dinner tonight. I can control um, that I feel dirt, I feel gross, and I want to shower, and let's go get clean. I get control of the remote control. It's mine. We're watching Netflix crap that my husband would never let me watch on repeat, right? Like we're watching The Bachelor, or what's the one where they're dating in the closets and they can't see each other, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm watching garbage TV and I'm going to enjoy it, right? Like giving yourself to have some control over something, at least for me mentally, was very, very helpful. And the third is my support network. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to have an amazing support network. I have an incredible husband. Our marriage has been tested so many times and come through positively that I know I can count on him and trust him to kind of take over the stuff of life, and also support me, and um, and just be there. And I also, my kids have been amazing. They want to help, and finding ways for them to feel useful, like, hey, could you get the laundry and put it in the dryer, right? That's amazing. That's helpful. I can't lift that stuff right now. Or I can't make dinner. I'm too tired. And so we have scrambled eggs for dinner. Great. Someone else made it. It wasn't me. Fabulous. Right. So, like, being able to figure out when to ask for help, who to ask for help, and then finally, my girlfriends. My girlfriends are amazing. I have a group of 4 girlfriends locally who are my ride or dies, and we met when our kids were in kindergarten, and now our kids are in college, um, and we call ourselves the squishes because they're my squishes. And they're just there. And when every time now that I'm diagnosed with cancer, and I know it seems silly to be like, every time I'm diagnosed with cancer, but every time I'm diagnosed with cancer, my friend Stacy makes Jello shots, and we Jello shot together how shitty it's going to be and get Jello shotted together. Like, Jello shots to me are the best way to acknowledge a shitty cancer diagnosis, you know? Like, instead, don't send me flowers, bring me Jello shots. Like, so whatever your version of Jello is, right? You know, it doesn't have to be Jello shots, but I do think that they're great. And so you have Jello shots, and then they visit and they make me laugh and they send me stupid texts. And when I was going through radiation and needed an aluminum-free deodorant and I couldn't figure out which one to use that would also, in fact, you know, not do sweat stains, like they were all over it and sending me like articles and like the most hilarious picture that I've ever seen of like this particular medical trial. It's a picture of a doctor who has got his nose like straight up in someone's armpits. And I don't know, like making fun of the situation, you know, making light of it with me and carrying me through it is just huge. So I don't, it's a combination of all those three things, right? One is it could always be worse, right? At least it's not the Inquisition, right? That's the Monty Python version of my, at least it's not the Holocaust. The second is, you know, an incredible immediate support system in terms of my family wanting to help and finding ways for them to genuinely help. And then the third is my girlfriends. So that's how I got through.
Amazing. So, what we have talked about the cancer, your story, your emotional balance, and then your support system, and which is actually very much required here. Can you little bit touch upon about the expenses and because everything like cancer is hard, but then
Yeah.
uh, it's very costly. The treatment is also very costly. So
Yes.
can you touch upon that how you were able to manage the cost and manage everything with the situation?
I'm incredibly lucky. Both my husband and I, at the time, at least for the first four cancers, both had executive jobs making good salaries. My husband, we always have, my husband works for he works for T-Mobile. So when you work for a really big Fortune 500 company, you know, obviously there's the benefit of
Right, yeah.
really excellent health insurance that's really comprehensive. I think that our total out of pocket for any year, I don't remember, somewhere around $5,000 or $10,000 when my actual expenses probably, I don't even know. Like, I sometimes we would just look at these bills that would come in for 50,000 here or 25,000 there, and you just send it to insurance and they pay for it. So, and then we hit our out of pocket maximum a couple years in a row. So our out of pocket maximum was knowable, right? And we could pay it. We didn't have to go on payment plans. We could just pay it in cash. Again, incredibly privileged. And then beyond that, lots of the little things, like I could afford to spend $50 on 2 ounces of, you know, of calendula oil infused lotion, and I could afford to buy 80 different organic deodorants until I found one that actually worked. I could, you know, those are all things. I don't have numbers for you in terms of what those things cost.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I joke that I probably spent about $250 on deodorant at Whole Foods until I could figure out a deodorant that actually was like useful to me. And it was a joke and it was funny, but there are plenty of other people out there that can't do that. That's just not reasonable to waste $250 on deodorant and just throw out the ones that don't work. Um, so I come at this from a place of privilege, and I am aware of that.
all right. So that's I would say that's a great thing, and that helped you a lot throughout your cancer journey. Let's talk about the idea, the Balm Box.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is going to be exciting, and so how it started? First question going to be how it
Yes.
started.
Yes. So in 2017, if we go back to 2017, finish line party, done with radiation. After all of that, I kept wondering, you know, during all of that time, you know, friends and family, the number one thing that they say to you when you say, I have cancer is, what can I do? And it's really hard in the moment to come up with an answer to that question. And also, it's very hard to ask for help, right? I mean, we'll just start with that, unless it's really, really close friend or family. And what people kept bringing me were so well-meaning, but just things that I couldn't use. So lots of flowers, for example. Well, when I went through radiation, I couldn't stand strong smells. It just became a thing. And so anyone that sent us flowers, I would bring over to my neighbor. Like I just couldn't have them in the house. Um, in fact, my poor husband, he was at that point banned from making coffee in the house because I couldn't stand that smell either. Like he had to go, everything was Starbucks that month, right? Again, privilege. I could force him to do it. He was great. And and bringing us, foods and meals. The meals were great for my family, but a lot of times I just had really particular tastes and I could do it. And so they were good for them, but not for me. So at the same time, concurrently, I'm trying to figure out the lotion. I'm trying to figure out ice that's not going to leak through my clothes. I'm trying to figure out, how am I gonna, is there some kind of, what am I going to use to keep the seatbelt from brushing against my tender upper torso? Like all of this stuff, I'm down, page 87 of Google searches looking for this stuff, and people are spending all sorts of money and bringing me all of this stuff. And especially when I had breast cancer, they brought me a lot of pink stuff, and most of it is junk. It really is. I'm not going to wear my Tatos tried to kill me t-shirt. That's just not who I am. It's funny to open up, but at that point, it also goes in the donation bin. Like it's just not something I'm going to wear. And I kept wondering, where is the functional gift box, right? Like, why can't someone give me something that I'm going to actually use and need? And that's really the logic behind the Balm Box. So when you fast forward so that idea was percolating in 2017, 2018, but I didn't really do anything with it until 2020. And in 2020, the moons aligned in the most amazing way. One was we start with, I had this idea for the Balm Box in the back of my head. It was something that I always wanted to do. But, we were two working families. We still had childcare responsibilities, right? Like this idea of me going rogue entrepreneur was really difficult. So in 2019, we started saving so that, we could kind of give ourselves some runway. But then beyond that, after that point, it was right in the beginning of 2020, I had this opportunity to go become a part-time instructor at University of Kansas teaching marketing classes. And while in no way does it replace my corporate income, it is some income, right? It's a little bit. And that was an incredible opportunity. So at that moment, I thought, okay, I'm going to do that part-time. I went contract with the business I was working at, figuring at some point I'm just going to stop and go full-time on working on Balm Box and working on and then teaching part-time. And in that time, I the same time, like within 6 weeks, if you recall, the world shut down, right? Because of the pandemic. And that's when, and at that time I thought, okay, this is a really good time for me to figure out if this is a really viable business idea. And so I wrote this insanely long survey, and it went down two paths. And if you'd previously had cancer, you would answer questions about things you wanted and needed when you were going through treatment. And if you hadn't, it asked whether or not you bought a gift for a cancer patient in the past 18 months. And if so, would you spend and what'd you buy? And I sent it to everyone who's ever emailed me ever. And I said, hey, help a sister out, answer the survey. And could you share it as well? And it went viral, which was amazing. And with no incentive whatsoever. It wasn't like chance to win $50. It was just like, hey, help my friend out. We got 600 responses, which is incredible. And I was able to validate I am not the only one. When you ask cancer patients things they want to need going through treatment, it's all functional, useful items: lip balm, lotion, blankets, right? Ice packs. When you ask people, have you bought a gift for a cancer patient in the past 18 months? Something like 75% said yes, which is a huge market, right? And what are you buying? Trinkets, flowers, and food. And I was like, wow, there's this real disconnect between what people want and need and what they're getting. And the Balm Box closes that gap. And that's very, very, and that to me was very, very validating. So I got laid off, which was awesome because was going to quit anyway. So thank you for the unemployment insurance. Rock on. That gave us a little bit more runway. And then I was teaching part-time, and I was off to the races. And so for the first 2 years was working on product market fit. I picked up a couple extra classes at KU. And then as the business started to grow, I had to start dropping. I couldn't teach as much as I was signed up for, so I had to start turning down classes. And I'm down at this point. I teach one class a semester now because I love it and it's really fun, and I really enjoy being on campus and I enjoy my colleagues. But at some point, I probably have to give that up. So.
All right. So this is more about how it started. Now, what is Balm Box? A lot of people will going to ask is, well, what is it?
Yeah, the Balm Box
Yeah.
is a website where you can purchase curated care packages for cancer patients. So we have some specialty boxes, especially for mastectomy and lumpectomy patients, because that's such a specific surgery.
Mhm.
And then we have broader cancer boxes. So there's a generic, not generic, that's the wrong term, an all-purpose cancer care package, or a chemo care package, or a radiation care package, or a skin care package, because skin is just one of the things that really struggles with lots and lots of different kinds of treatments, like lung cancer and radiation, and even chemo will wreak havoc on your skin and your nails. And you can mix and match, you can add things. We also, as through that product, have some proprietary products. So we have a patent pending product. It's our surgical drain holder, which I think is pretty great. So it's a
Mhm.
little, anyone that's had an upper body surgery, you have these terrible J drains that are coming out of your body, sewn into your body. And oftentimes, I mean, every time I've had them and everyone I see, they've got these little tags on them, and the hospital sends you home with these giant safety pins to pin them to your
It
clothes.
is, yeah.
And the pins are they tear your clothes, and B, I'm not sure I'm supposed to pin it to when I'm in the shower or trying to dress or change. And so the beauty of our solution, which is a specialty lanyard that also is adjustable for length, goes over your head, and then we have these magnetic clips that clip the J drain to the lanyard, and all together that holds the drains so that you can be hands-free. It gets the weight of the
Yeah.
drains off your body, because the weight and the pull of the drain against your body can be very painful. Allows you to dress on your own, to shower on your own. The adjustable length of it is great, so that then if you have clothes with like little inner pockets, you can drop the tubes in your pockets. It's just an altogether very, very, very useful product. We get lots of great reviews on it. So we're actually next week filing the full patent, which is very exciting. We also
Yeah.
have some specialty pillows for mastectomy, like some ones that go under your arm. We also have seatbelt pillows that are great for chemo patients that have really tender ports, or anyone with an upper body surgery. So yeah, there's some products that we make ourselves. Again, these are things where like I started by working with a seamstress who was making like 20 a month, out of her um, guest room, and now we work with like a manufacturing facility out of Virginia, because my seamstress can't handle the kind of volumes that we do. So it's just been this organic constant growth. For 3 years I took every profit we made from the business and I reinvested it right back into the business. I didn't take a salary until year 4. So yeah, I've been very, very, very conscious of my cash flow, very conscious of reinvesting, making sure that we could afford to grow thoughtfully and carefully. And that's been one of the secrets, I think, to our success.
That's truly an inspiring story. When we talk last time about Balm Box, you told me a story about how it went off with a social media post. Can you give then tell us what exactly was that?
No, that was when I sent I posted, hey, answer my survey, help a sister out, and that's what went viral, and that's what helped me collect all the responses, in
Mm.
addition to then other friends and family sharing. I mean, it was pretty fantastic. I had so much support.
So this is about the Balm Box when you posted the some of your pictures of your product, then there was a lot of traction, and then it helped you to get more
Yeah,
sales.
social
So
media has
yeah.
been helpful to us,
Mm.
but social media is not, and influencers or that kind of thing have not been what has grown our business. What's grown our business has mostly been investing in probably slightly more traditional advertising. But remember, my background is in marketing, and so this is my
Yeah,
area of
yeah,
expertise. And
yeah.
so we spend quite a bit of money on the Google platform, because again, how do you identify or target individuals shopping on behalf of a cancer patient? That's a very specific and tricky target. And so it's much easier to target someone based on their search, right? So if I'm searching gift for cancer patient, you're going to find Balm Box will come up some way, shape, or form. And that's how we find you. And then once we find you, we will follow you all over the interwebs. So wherever you are, you'll get ads for the Balm Box. So that's how we find you. I mean, there's other, I'm sure the pharmacists are aware, like there's other ways to target patients based on their medical conditions that are HIPAA compliant, but they are at this point a little out of our range in terms of cost and availability. And so we're not there yet.
So that comes up to current, recent events happen when you already started the Balm Box and then you was hit by cancer again. How was you
Yeah.
able to manage it? Yeah. So because if you have a business, you need to give your 24/7, I would say the job, whenever you are doing a job, it's only 8 to 10 hours, if I would say. But then if you have a business, it's almost like you are fully invested into that. So how you managed at that time?
At that point, so the business started in my guest room, right? We joked that our guest room was the Balm Box World headquarters. And then as it grew, I took over the garage. And then eventually my husband was like, get out. We love you. Go. This is not a business. Get
Hmm.
out. And he was not wrong.
Yeah.
And we now are in a commercial space. But that at that time, we were still in the house, which was helpful. So as I was recovering, I could be downstairs in the recliner and resting and still provide the littlest bit of direction. But honestly, that summer, the deep flap reconstruction, I'm trying to think. Through both of those times, it was a combination of my daughter and my mother who just would fulfill orders that would, I was still kind of responding to emails when I could, but they also handled customer care. They handled fulfillment. They handled reorders. They really took over the business. And then the summer when I had my deep flap reconstruction, I had a little bit more advanced notice in time. And so at that point I had hired, honestly, one of my friend's daughters, Ellie Henson. Shout out to
Wow.
Ellie. And Ellie worked part-time for me that summer, knowing that I was going to be, out for the count for about a month. And I had an 18-year-old running the business. But she had been working for me part-time, like when I say part-time, like she'd be coming in to help with fulfillment and other things 5 hours a week. And so then at that point, it was a guaranteed, 20, 25 hours a week that she was there doing things. And my mom and my daughter also obviously, pitched in. So it was a community effort. So, you had to pay for help. And I was incredibly lucky that I have access to these brilliant, capable teenagers that could at least handle the operation side of the business, right? When it came to, and also at that point, I was working with an ad agency. And so the ad agency knew, like we'd pre-planned that I was going to be out. And so, I need you to run the show. You're authorized to make these decisions during this time. Don't ask me. I'm going to be drugged up. I don't know. You don't want to, don't ask me to do anything that requires thought. And so,
Yeah.
I kind of planned around it. Asking for help.
All right.
That's the key. And paying for help, paying for good
Yeah.
help.
So obviously, so you were able to navigate through the scenarios, the situation when you were off from
Yeah.
the work. All right, so let's a little bit talk about the vision and what do you see the future of the company, and then what what a key takeaway other entrepreneur or I would say someone who is thinking of an idea, so that what what suggestion you want to give?
Well, the future, there's short term and long term, right? So in the short term, we need to secure, working on securing our patents for our intellectual property and defending that while concurrently growing the business, right? So right now, the vast majority of our business is still run through direct to consumer, but we have expanded into other marketplaces. So you can find variations of the Balm Box on like Amazon and Walmart Marketplace and Etsy. The long-term vision and something that we are only a couple months into is, and we've had some really nice successes on, is selling the Balm Box as a physical gift product in retail pharmacies. And so I brought on about 6 months ago, a sales manager, and she has just done an incredible job of building out that business line, what that product line will look like, all the distribution plans for it, all the fun things, that the operational elements, right, that go with that, and doing outreach to pharmacies. And I do think that having retail space would be hugely beneficial to the Balm Box. Just, our brand on a shelf is an awareness, right, tactic that's right there. It's an ad. And then beyond that, it's just an incremental venue. It's where people are, especially if you're there picking up your 8 million prescriptions, and it's something that you see, maybe you buy for yourself, or if you're, if you're, I know my husband picked up almost all my prescriptions. He would have picked that up for me for sure. So something in those lines. So I see wholesale retail as a really big opportunity, and one that we're investing heavily in right now. But will that pay off in the next 12 months? Probably not. But in the next 5 years, absolutely, right?
Talking about my last part of the question, what is your suggestion to entrepreneurs?
There's two schools of thought when it comes to entrepreneurship. And one is, mortgage your house, sell everything you own, put 100% all in, get scared. And that, that fear will drive you to make decisions quick and to move fast and break things. And I don't subscribe to that. I did it the other way, which was I had found, I joke that teaching is my side hustle, and so, and I have found having a secondary source of income has been huge and really helpful in giving me a little bit more space and time and breathing room to figure out that product market fit, to take the time to learn how to be an entrepreneur, right? From going from managing a department of 25 people to managing myself, right? Like that's a different experience, and having no one to delegate to, I delegate it to myself, it took some time to kind of wrap my head around that and what that would be like. And so I do think that for me, I subscribe to the go slow, right? Because if you go slow, you retain more equity in your business. Right now, I own 100% equity in my business, but I'm not leveraged. And I think that that is huge. So I can make decisions that are best for the business because I'm not answering to any other ownership group or, board of directors or whatnot. So I think that that's been, for me, a very healthy way to grow the business. And that is how I would recommend people start.
Okay, that comes up to advice for other businesses who are helping the patient, like, for example, big pharma, healthcare companies, biotech.
And
So
and again, I say
what
that
can they?
because my startup costs were quite low. If your startup costs are millions of dollars, then that's not an option, right? So it's just, it all kind of depends on the business model, certainly.
Let's talk other way. What is your advice in terms of patients patients purview? For example, you were being a cancer survivor, so you were a patient, and you built this business based on whatever you have seen or whatever you have felt. So, what is the advice for big pharma or the companies who are in healthcare, and they need to support the patient in a different way? And certainly, at a lot of places, there are gaps. So, your thoughts?
That's a good question.
Mhm.
I wish there was a way for pharmaceuticals that have known side effects to automatically come, right, with something to treat them. So for
Yeah.
example, like right now we're working on developing a lung cancer box, and there's a lung cancer treatment, I forget the name of it, it's like targeted therapy, I think is what it's called. And every single lung cancer patient that we talk to talks about how dry their skin is and how terrible it is and how uncomfortable it is. Wouldn't it be amazing if when you picked up your targeted therapy prescription, it came with a bottle of really fantastic lotion, or like they're like finger caps, like things that really are, and cuticle oil. Like if it came with the stuff, it's not prescription, but just things that are going to help with the known side effects. That to me would be amazing. Our, industry is not built that way. But to me, that would be a win.
All right. So it's going to be almost we are end to it. Uh, so as you have passed all of those phases, do you see like do you have some time to your day-to-day life now? And then if you are able to do it, because obviously business owners or CEO or founder of companies are very busy. What is your me time or what is your time which you are able to spend and what way you are spending
Oh
that time?
yeah.
Yeah.
I now have um a staff of 2 and they're awesome. So I can, I think that where I am now with the business, we're in year 6, is it's much cleaner and better. When it comes to the day-to-day operations, I can leave for a week or 2 and my team is on it. They can handle 100% of everything. My job now is strategic and growth and planning, and those are things that are much more flexible and variable. So I can go to my daughter's sororities, parent weekend, and I can, totally be there. I can be fully present. I don't have to be on my computer half the time, and I know that my team has got it covered. So, from an operations standpoint, I'm in a really good place. Um, so I think that my work-life balance has gotten, it wasn't always this way, but I also was unbelievably lucky that the first 2 years of the business were during COVID when there wasn't anything to do anyway. It was when there was very
Yeah.
little. So I think that my growth path I've been very, very lucky in that um, the moons have aligned beautifully for me, right? In terms of, when I had to dig in, had very little personal time, it didn't really matter because there was nowhere to go. And then once I started to grow and the world started kind of reopening, then I also had more flexibility. I had more help. I had more support. I had more, hands in the business such that I could leave for longer and longer periods of time. But it is also true. I went to Europe for 2 weeks last summer with my family. It was awesome, but I mean, I was still checking email every day. I don't have that ability to just completely check out. I'm not that
Sort
good.
of, yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I also am. I think that the beauty of also starting a business in your 40s is that you come in with a certain amount of maturity and expertise and experience delegating. And I
For
think
sure.
that had
Yeah.
I done this in my 20s, I might not have had that
Mm-hmm.
um, understood as well how to do that, right? So I think having managed teams before, managing staff before, was a huge benefit before getting started.
It's true. Yeah. I'm going to ask you a last question here, and that is the best feedback you have ever got from a buyer or a patient. Like, and
I can answer that
mhm.
easily. The best feedback, and I've gotten this a couple different times, and every time it makes me smile and gets me a little teary, is when someone
I
says,
can see that. Yeah.
I feel seen. When the patient says, I feel seen, I got this box and I feel seen. That's amazing. Like that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do.
All right. Can you give us a little detail where people can go and buy this Balm Box if they think that,
Yes,
okay,
yes. So you
they
can
have someone. Mhm.
find us on direct on our website, thebombbox.com. That's THEBALMBOX.com.
Mhm.
And you can also find the Bomb Box on Etsy, on Instagram, on Amazon, Walmart Marketplace, CVS. Find us everywhere online right now. And a couple
All
local
right.
pharmacies in Kansas,
Mhm.
but those are pretty specific. So for the rest of the audience, thebombbox.com.
Perfect. When I talked to last time, you are also trying to make it internationally available brand. So, what are those
Yeah, it
plans?
is.
Yeah.
We do ship internationally. We don't advertise internationally right now, just because of all of the tariff crazy. It has artificially inflated the cost of our boxes. Although I think I just read that the tariffs have been struck down, so I don't know what that's going to do. I have to give me more than 20 minutes to read a news article and I can answer that question. So yes, we do ship internationally to the EU, to the UK, Ireland, and Canada.
All right. So, Liz, it was nice talking to you, and thank you for sharing all of your experiences, your story, and how you built the Balm Box. It was truly an incredible and amazing story to listen about, and that's why, starting off this podcast, I told the audience that this is going to be different. This is going to be coming from really from the heart of a patient. And it was nice talking to you. And I hope we are going to connect and do another podcast in near future and discuss how the Balm Box is turning out.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. So thank you for listening our podcast, the CXO Talks. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories like this. Obviously, if you're subscribing our channel, it gives us a motivation to bring more CXOs like Liz. And then it also helps us to grow our network so more and more people can be able to hear the stories. If you think this is something which can be shared to other cancer survivors, you are able to do that, please do share this video. Also, one thing that the stories like Liz gave us a lot of strength, a lot of emotional support, so that if someone is going through the rough patch of their life, they can listen to this story and then they can feel that okay, and they can connect to the situation. So stay strong and keep on fighting. This is Aditya Singh signing off.